talking to Eric, my pal Eric, and we were having a discussion about the economy and money and wealth, and those are two different things, of course. And he said something that really kind of made me think, something I kind of knew already, but, he really just kind of put it in the forefront. And he said, and he kind of put into words a lot of ideas that I knew. But he said, wealth creation, and that's what our economy, what the whole world economy depends on, is the creation of wealth. And that's why the U.S. and the West is so rich, because we've created a lot of wealth. We're not creating wealth now, we're spending. And but he pointed out that creation of wealth involves taking something and making it more valuable. Not selling people a house, not sitting and shuffling papers in an office, not being a barista at Starbucks or something, but making something more valuable. And like in his case, he's an engineer. He takes hunks of steel, which are valuable in themselves, and he turns them in very valuable valves for paper mills. And so he's taking something and more valuable through his skill set, through his ability to manipulate this stuff. And that's really where, and when you're wealthy people, as opposed to rich people, wealthy people are people that can create things like that. So one of the problems, like, we just had a $1.7 billion lottery drawing. I don't think anyone won. Let's say you win $1 billion from the lottery. People will win a lot of money and they spend it. They're dirt poor within a few years.
And miserable.
Yeah, there's that too. I like the one about the guy, apparently a true story. He won the lottery in France. And, he got a huge amount of money. He never had so much money in his life. He was a little poor peasant guy that only lived in a 2-room hut like his whole life. So first thing he did was, I'm buying a big house. He bought this 87-room mansion. He got lost in it. He was lost in it for days. He drank tap water out of one of his many dozens of bathrooms and stuff, but it took him a couple of days to actually get out of the house. He was kind of hungry by then, but not dehydrated, getting drinks of water. If you're handed a great deal of wealth like that, your best idea is to put in something that's going to generate wealth, like growing food like you guys do, or doing something like creating something like books, poetry, music. You're taking like just mere words and making them more valuable by making a song or a book or a poem. Or you're taking some earth, which is very nice, and you put trees in it. And then not only just the trees, but you make, you create, who is it who said that there's so much that nature offers us if we just take it? But you can't just reach out and grab it. You've got to do things like plow field or, plant chickens or whatever, I guess that's how they take it. You take a chicken's egg and then you plant it in the garden and the chicken comes up or something. I forget how that. Gold has applications.
But nobody uses it for those applications. It just sits in vaults.
Well, yeah, most of it. I mean, gold is used in certain electronic components, and there are some things gold can do as a conductor that other metals can't do, especially if you're like building a spacecraft and you want something that is not going to corrode under any circumstances for hundreds or thousands of years. Yeah, then gold's your thing every time. But yeah, 99.9% of it is just locked away. And, some of it's used in jewelry and stuff, which is very pretty. But as far as the technical uses for gold, I'm no expert. I couldn't tell you in detail, but I do know that it is used in some certain electronic applications. It's a very good conductor of electricity, and it does not tarnish. I mean, if you wanted to make a lightning rod and a lightning rod cable that would last, for 1,000 years, you'd make it out of solid gold. Of course, somebody would come along and melt it down. The societies that did have a great gold found it a very useful because it's so malleable and pretty. South America, they use gold for all sorts of things. And, when people from Europe got there, it's like, hey, wow, look at all this. Oh, that's just gold. Here, have some. Hey. Well, I think that's where the Irish gold came from. I've talked about that. Ireland used to be very famous as a source of gold. Long time ago. Thought that there may have been some transatlantic connections. I mean, there's a lot of evidence for it. Phoenicians were probably out over there. We know that people in West Africa were trading with Eastern South America. We found evidence in metallurgy. They found metal artifacts that were obviously made in Africa. They found them in Central America or Northern South America. And I mean, the trouble with some of that as well, it came over after Columbus, this, that. But that was like the the conquistadors who talked about a village of, sub-Saharan African people in Central America, and it must have been escaped slaves. You hadn't been there more than a couple of years. How are you going to have a bunch of slaves escape, establish a village and everything? They were obviously people who had sailed over from Africa and moved there. So there were contacts, and think about it too. If you're a trader back in the old, like Phoenicians and stuff like that, the Carthaginians they knew had secret ports that they wouldn't talk about. This is documented. I forget which writer who wrote it. I think might have mentioned it, that they had these safety places to go out of the Pillars of Hercules, just go out into the Atlantic, and where they could, in case they had a major defeat. But if you knew a place where they treated gold the way we treat iron, you wouldn't be telling a lot of other merchants about it. You'd be like, for one thing, it would knock the hell out of the price of gold, which is what happened when the Spanish started bringing it over. They did horrible things to the economy of Europe. They didn't care. They had all the gold. It's like, prices have doubled. Yeah, but I have 10 times what I had before, so I care. And, poor Spain. They had a lot of money, but they didn't have much wealth. And there's the difference between wealth and money. I used to read a lot of Terry Pratchett, and he made the interesting comment that rich people didn't have to spend as much money as poor people. That's why they were rich, because they didn't spend as much money as poor people. And he says an example, for example, if you're poor, you can't afford to buy a really good pair of boots. You might only have $10 to buy a pair of boots, and that pair of boots might last you the year. But then you got to spend another $10 on boots. Whereas if you're rich, you can buy a pair of boots for $30 or $40 that will last you 10 years. And so you're actually, at the end of 10 years, the poor person has spent $100 from $10 boots. Poor person's only spent, maybe $40 or $50. And they inherit all the furniture. They don't have to buy new furniture. They have this old, heavy, gigantic stuff handed down for hundreds of years. The decaying aristocracy in their big old drafty houses with attics stuff from the Elizabethan era, and old portraits all painted by big name artists. So whenever they get really poor, they can always sell a painting or something. That's really not much different from a guy in a trailer with cut out things from calendars hanging on the wall and a bunch of old bottles and stuff like that. It's it's the same mindset. It's just that it's less valuable stuff. I've known people that a lot of their time and they spent a lot of their money trying to look as if they had more money than they had. I used to know a couple I worked with in this one place, and they both worked full-time jobs plus extra jobs. And to be fair, when they'd gotten together, they were both divorcees, so they both had kids. And then they had a kid. So they have 4 kids. That's a lot of kids. They're expensive. But even so, they had 2 houses, mortgaged to the hilt. When they got married, they each had a house, so they moved in together and they rented the other house out, for rental income. But both houses were mortgaged to the hilt. They had a new car every 3 years, whether they needed one or not. They'd sign these, now they have these agreements basically where they just, and you never stop paying the money, and they just deliver you a new car every 3 years. They had to have, when the latest plasma screen TV came out, they had, my TV isn't, they have a TV that's 3 inches bigger, gotta have that. They were always buying the latest TV, all the latest toys. And of course the kids had anything and everything. And they just spent on it. You don't need a bloody new car every 3 years, it's crazy. And but they had to have everything new and with clothes, so people would think that they had money, but they didn't have any money. That's the thing. They were spending it on. I had a cousin like that. My cousin Kenny. He would. I haven't seen him in years, but I remember, and the rest of my family used to laugh about it because he made pretty good money. He was an antique dealer, but he would make a deal, and then he would go. And I remember we were talking about, he bought this raccoon coat, which was popular back then. God, this had to have been in the late 70s or early 80s. I was just a little guy. but old enough to like, talk with my uncles and my cousins about this. It's like, oh yeah, cousin Kenny just bought $1,000 coat. And like my Uncle Richie's like, what the, how can you afford? Well, he can't afford that, but he wants his rich friends things that he says are just them. So he's got to have but he's driving a little compact car, but he's getting out with like, his suits are all really expensive and tailored, and, the pedicure and the manicure. Well, you couldn't tell from the pedicure, I guess, but always the manicured hands and stuff. And just spending just to have that image, to project that image, and that's what he took delight in. It's like Tanisso talking about the ad when the guy comes up on the rooftop parking garage and he sees his BMW. I've got the Bimmer, everybody else has to drive their little, Japanese things.